Hello friends, this is the lesson number 30 in this series of criticism in English literature. In the previous lesson we discussed T.S. Eliot. It was in fact the part 1 on T.S. Eliot, and where we discussed the metaphysical poets, and then we had a brief discussion on unification of sensibility and disassociation on sensibility. Now in this lesson we shall carry our discussion on in T.S. Eliot with his another essay, that is Tradition and Individual Talent. This essay was first published in a magazine that is, the name is Egoist, and this magazine was famous during the period of First World War. So it was quite active during the period of 1914 to 1919, and it was published monthly. So remember the name of this magazine, Egoist. And later this essay was published in a book that is Sacred Wood. It is a book of criticism by T.S. Eliot. So T.S. Eliot says that criticism is inevitable as breathing. So simply criticism is must, and one cannot really avoid, as we cannot avoid breathing. We tend to breathe because otherwise we die. So same way criticism is always there. Whenever you have something in your hand, a book or a pen or whatever, you buy a new one, or like a car, you buy a new car, the people starts to give you some sort of criticism, whether it's a good or bad. So it is quite inevitable. You cannot really stop even yourself from having that sort of a critical opinion of others. So in this essay we have three parts. The first part talks about the tradition. For tradition, first just to try to understand this word tradition. If I am saying that your house is quite traditional, your writing style is quite traditional, what do you feel? Do you feel that I am appreciating you, or do you feel that I am criticizing you? More often than not, I believe that even 90 people will find that I am criticizing, because quite often we use this word tradition in a negative way. So when we say that it was okay, the party was quite traditional, means the people started to feel that okay, it was just as there used to be the others, the same way it was. There was nothing new in that. There was no uniqueness. There was no difference at all. So that sort of feeling when people have, they are simply rejecting. But T.S. Eliot says that the word tradition shouldn't be used in that way. The word tradition shouldn't be used that way. It is the word for praising. So how he says that, there is a quote, "Seldom perhaps does the word tradition appear except in the phrase of censure." So he is simply saying that whenever we are disapproving people, censure means you are criticizing, you are disapproving people, that time we use tradition word more often. Hardly we see that we are praising people by saying that okay, that is wow, traditional it is. No. So T.S. Eliot says that we should use this word for praising people, because if you belong to any tradition, it is a great achievement. It is not just ordinary thing, or it is not a negative thing. He then says, individual part of any work is a part in which dead poets are mirrored vigorously. Individual part of any work is a part in which dead poets are mirrored vigorously. Any such resemblance is mostly seen in the period of maturity of the poet, not in the period of adolescence. So first thing he says that if you are writing something and your work, if I am experiencing the dead poets, okay, you are a new writer and you are writing in your work. In your work, I see the reflection of the great writers or the dead writers like Shakespeare or Milton or so, or those means the traditional old writers. Then definitely your work is of a great quality. It belongs to that tradition. Second, he says that if someone is managing to do this, means someone is able to produce the image of the dead writers in, or the effects of the dead writers, it can be achieved only by the mature writers in the age of maturity. Means when you have gone through number of readings and great, means a lot of literature you have studied, only then you can achieve this. For example, if you are a writer and you have gone through Shakespeare, John Milton and Alexander Pope, and then the great Victorian writers Chaucer and the ancient writers, everyone you have gone through, and then you started writing, what will happen? We find that in your writing there will be reflection of these writers, because whatever you have studied, that is bound to be reflected in your creative work. So that is tradition you are bringing in your work. Whatever you have read from written by the past or the dead writers, whatever is there in the past written, that is reflecting in your work, and that is tradition, and that is great achievement. And third thing, it can be achieved only in the age of maturity, when you become a mature writer. So then he says that the individual's talent is, this is individual's talent. If one is able to produce all those, the influence of those past writers in his work. Remember, tradition I have already told you. So individual talent is this, if one is able to bring the reflection of those writers, of those past writers in his work. So that is how we see tradition and individual's talent both go hand in hand, both go together. Adding to it, we can say that poet is having individual talent only when his work mirrors the dead writers or dead poets. Only then. In England, the ordinary critic used to admire those aspects of the poet which are different from the predecessors. Actually, it was a wrong thing what T.S. Eliot says, that the ordinary critic, they used to do this, that whenever they find something unique or something, you can say, different in the poet from their predecessors, they used to admire. But what T.S. Eliot says, that the past writers or the dead writers, dead poets, these writers should reflect in someone's work. That is the individual talent, and that is also, you can say, the part of tradition. And then we have the topic of historic sense. As we see in tradition and individual talent, as we see, the both are going hand in hand. Means tradition is carried from the past writers and individuals' talent is only contributing to them, and the same tradition is reflecting in that individual's work. The same way is historic sense. But first he says that if someone is blindly following the predecessors, that is simply copy, and it cannot be you can say respected, or shouldn't be allowed. It will in fact destroy the creativity. So he simply says blind adherence to the a blind adherence of ancestor should be destroyed. Going away from the immediate predecessor is not individual's poetry. Means if you simply go away or write differently from your predecessors, it is not your individuality. No way it is. And the same thing is repeated from the previous concept, that tradition cannot be simply inherited. It comes by the vast reading. So these all things contribute to the historic sense. He says that whatever is there in English literature, for example, in English literature we start from the great Greek literature or Roman literature, then we come to this time reading all the works or the great works of Chaucer, and then Shakespeare, Milton and Dryden and Pope and everyone. When we just cover all that part, that is historic. but there is also a touch of the contemporary writers. Means the past, the historics, and the present, means the contemporary, both make collectively a historic sense. Historic sense cannot alone be from the past. There should be the mixture of the contemporary and also of the past writers. Because in all these different ages we see there are similarities among these writers, and these similarities are even carried in the contemporary writers. So all these collectively form historic sense. One beautiful quote is there by him: past should be altered by present. I'll explain. Past should be altered by present as much as present is directed by past. So in this quote we have two sentences, both collectively make historic sense. The first, present, okay, I am taking the second part first, that is present is directed by past. So in the past we have a lot of work, and all these works are directing the present. So whatever the content is in the past, that is influencing, that has influence on the present works. So present is directed by the past. And second, past should be altered by present. Now what does it mean? Past should be altered by present. For this you take one writer like Shakespeare. There is a work, Hamlet. Okay, most of the critics have praised and also criticized this work. Now you are reading, and today you are taking this work and you are considering all these aspects, and you are producing something new of this work. Means you bring another sort of criticism of this work. That is also changing the past. You may analyze some aspect which haven't been analyzed by any writer. For example, I take the same Hamlet again. Some writers have praised, or some critics have praised this work, Hamlet. But there are some writers who are talking about the flaws of Hamlet character. They are talking about some of other aspects which are presenting the flaws of this character and even of this play. So that new analysis adding meaning to the work. So whenever there is a new sort of analysis, that is changing the past. Like the works of Homer, I do not know, or we do not know what were the Homer's tendency when he was writing Iliad and Odyssey. But after the ages, number of writers or number of critics have analyzed this work, and now today we have different meanings. Maybe Homer wasn't thinking the same way as we are thinking of Iliad and Odyssey, and after 100 years later there would be new criticism of Homer's with these works, and they would be thinking thoroughly a different way. So what we see, even the work of Homer is changed, or works of Homer are somewhere altered by new definitions or new criticism. So that's all collectively make a historic sense. So we have discussed these two aspects. The first, tradition and individual talent. We cannot separate them. Talent is always contributing in the tradition. The same way in the historic sense, contemporary or present is always there, that is modifying the past. So that definition or that quote you should remember: past should be altered by the present as much as present is directed by the past. And then comes the part second of this essay, where he talks about impersonality. Impersonality. So personality, you know that if we are reading a work, and we can easily find that without knowing the author of that work, we can simply guess that okay, this work is written by that particular writer. How? Because in the text of that work we can feel that person, we can feel the touch of him. But here T.S. Eliot is saying that there should be impersonality. the person should not affect the work by his personal, you can say, emotions and feelings and his own, you can say, personality. So all personal feelings, likes and everything should be removed. Only then a new work is born. Otherwise there is no possibility of any new or creative work to be there. So one should sacrifice his own personality. So impersonality means one writer should sacrifice, the writer should sacrifice his own personality. One should not leave his impact on the work. One should try to keep his personality away from that work while writing. We can take one example that we know, Wasteland is written by T.S. Eliot. But try to honestly answer, if you have gone through this work, T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, do we actually feel that while reading or while studying that this work is written by T.S. Eliot? Do we get to know anything of T.S. Eliot's personality, that a writer should be like this, or he would be of this sort of opinion? Any work that you can take, like the works of Thomas Hardy, there are a number of novels by him, The Return of Native, and then The Mayor of Casterbridge, and then one more is there, Far from the Maddening Crowd, and then Under the Greenwood Trees. A number of works are there. So do we really feel that what sort of person Thomas Hardy would be by reading these works? If we are able to, or if there are some sort of impression in that work that yes, Thomas Hardy would be of that sort of person, means with that sort of feelings, then certainly there is some personality issue. So T.S. Eliot is saying that one should not leave his impact, his personality's impact on the work. Like in the case of William Wordsworth, in his poems we feel that William Wordsworth's images are there, means Wordsworth's personality is reflecting in his poems. So T.S. Eliot is criticizing William Wordsworth for leaving his personality's impact on his works. So what T.S. Eliot recommend, actually, he says that personal emotions and feelings to be converted in the art, and there should be, poetry should be objective, only text has to be there, and one should keep his own experiences or backgrounds or feelings aside. Only then one should write. Okay, for this he takes the example of chemistry science. In the beginning of the previous lesson I told you that T.S. Eliot is saying that criticism is something like a scientific work or factually scientific report. There shouldn't be personal notions. So there he gives an example from chemistry. Okay, there are some typical names, so I shall try to just read these names. Like he says, we have oxygen and sulfur dioxide. You might have read these names in the 10th or 11th classes science. Oxygen and sulfur dioxide is there, and with their, you can say, composition or their reactions or so, we get sulfuric acid, and for that their reaction, one thing is necessary, means for oxygen and sulfur dioxide, if we want that both should react and become sulfuric acid, then platinum filament must be there for their reaction, and this platinum remains unaffected during this process, means whatever they react during their reaction, there is no effect on filament or this platinum, sorry. And similarly he says that poet's mind is needed for poetry. As we see, there is no trace of reaction on platinum. Similarly, there shouldn't be any trace on poet's mind. And then he talks about what the romantics used to say, that what is poetry? Poetry is spontaneous overflow of emotions, reflection of personality. The romantics, they favor that there should be the reflection of the poet's personality in the work, but what T.S. Eliot says, that in the work there should be only escape from the personality. There shouldn't be any sort of impact of the personality in the work. So it's 20 minutes again, and we shall conclude this video here. In the next part we shall discuss Hamlet and his problem. There is an objective correlative theory given by T.S. Eliot. Before finishing, I would like to just sum up what are the main points, as we can remember factually that tradition and talent both go together. So we cannot we cannot really separate individuals' talent from the tradition. And second, historic sense is also the same way, that historic sense cannot be separated from the contemporary or the present. Present is always adding meaning to the historic sense. And in the third part we discussed the impersonality. Impersonality means the writer or the poet, he's simply surrendering his personality, he's sacrificing. So when someone is writing without affecting the work with his personality, that is the, you can say, the concept of impersonality. And T.S. Eliot saying that the romantic writers, they used to affect the work with their personality, but he says that there shouldn't be any effect of one's personality. Regarding this, we can take one beautiful example from the movies. We see number of villains in the movies, and we tend to form particular opinion about them by seeing that in the negative roles again and again, like any, you can say, villain. And we tend to form opinion about even their personal life, that in the personal life they would be like the same as they are performing in the movies. That is the part of their personality, but no way they are showing their personality, means how they are in their actual life and how they are performing in the movies. So the same way T.S. Eliot is saying that if there is any poet or so, if he is writing, he should keep his personality away from the work. Only then he can be successful. So that's it we have for this lesson, and in the next lesson we shall continue with Hamlet and his problems, the work by T.S. Eliot. Thanks a lot for watching this lesson. Have a great day.